Welcome back to Business on 570 News as we kick off our summer season, and couldn't pick a better topic to get to later in the show than the Manulife Financial LPGA Golf Classic. Jim Kuiper's tournament chair will join us, and Mike Garside, Vice President and COO of Gulf North, will both be joining us later in the show. So stick around for that. There's a huge economic input surrounding this tournament. It brings many dollars into the community. And that'll be our focus, one of our focuses, later this afternoon.
Yeah, it's hard to focus on you with that hat on, but it is a great hat.
We're being webcast if you want to check out what Greg is talking about. And let's get right to it. Before we get to Mike and Jim to talk about Manulife Financial and Gulf North, we're very delighted to have with us Jim Prentice, a former cabinet minister and a longtime cabinet minister of several portfolios in the Harper government, and now is vice chair of CIBC, and he's going to be involved with the chamber at an event coming up, and we're going to talk to him right now about that.
Yeah, well, welcome, Jim. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Great to be with you, Ian.
Now, Jim is a lawyer from Calgary. He was an industry minister as well as a federal environment minister. He's here in town tomorrow to actually flying from Calgary to join us for our Energy and Environment Forum, our 26th annual Energy and Environment Forum. But Jim, and he travels extensively across Canada, North America, and internationally on behalf of CIBC. But your home is in Calgary, Jim, and we're all thinking and praying of Albertans and Calgarians today affected by the flooding. What can you tell us about how things are shaping up in Calgary?
Well, we appreciate your thoughts and prayers. It has been devastating, but this will bring out the best in Calgarians, and the city is on the mend now. The rivers have subsided. In the case of the Elbow River, quite dramatically, and so now the work of the cleanup begins, and also there are still parts of the city that are not safe, and so the state of emergency remains. But it has been just an unbelievable event, essentially with the entire inner city subject to flooding, and 100,000 people evacuated, and 30,000 people remain at this point out of their homes. So.
Well, our thoughts we do think about you, all the folks in Calgary and surrounding area. But we hope you're going to make it onto a plane and join us for our 26th annual Energy and Environment Forum tomorrow at 11 o'clock at the Delta Hotel. And I'm pleased to have you because of your varied background as a lawyer, but also as a former environment minister and industry minister. I mean, we here in the region of Waterloo are always thinking in Cambridge and Kitchener-Waterloo about how we balance economic growth as well as environmental sustainability, and you're going to talk about how all of those things fit together. So what's the theme of your speech tomorrow going to be?
Well, I will be speaking about what's taking place in Canada, in North America, actually, in terms of energy independence and what the consequences are for us as Canadians in Ontario. And it's a pretty dramatic story. There have been unbelievable changes in terms of both the energy picture and the environment picture in North America over the last 5 years, and so it's an interesting discussion and a focus on how this will all impact Ontario.
That's great. Now it's still rocky times across Canada in terms of or tepid economic growth. CIBC, what's the outlook by your professionals and your economists in terms of what the forecast is for 2014 and 13-14 and moving ahead?
Well, we continue to see stability in Canada. We think that Canadian growth will continue to be positive. We will probably continue to lag the United States for a period of time. But it's steady on course. There are some issues in Canada we need to deal with. We need, for example, to resolve some of the infrastructure bottlenecks that we have in terms of pipelines between Western Canada and Eastern Canada, between Western Canada and the Asia Pacific, and for sure between Canada and the United States. And the energy sector will continue to be a driving force in the economy with consequences that spread right across Canada, because a lot of the capital installations that go into the oil sands, for example, are actually fabricated in Ontario. So it's a Canadian story, and these developments that I'll speak about this week in terms of energy and the environment, they're very much a national story, a national picture.
And how, just as a little follow-up, any sense of how this region is you talked about the manufacturing sector, and there's a chunk of that here in southwestern Ontario. But how does this region play into that larger national and international story?
Well, it's kind of interesting that actually Canada's oil industry started in 1889, not very far from where we'll be. But when you look at the energy and the environment industries, if I can use that term today, they're very much high technology. And so what we see in the Kitchener-Waterloo area is very much at the center of all this. And we've got obviously excellence in that part of Canada in terms of both manufacturing and intellectual content. And that's very much going to be the story of energy and the environment as we go forward. So, I really see this region, our region, Kitchener-Waterloo, as being central to all of it.
Our guest is Jim Prentice, now Vice Chair of the CIBC and a former Tory Cabinet Minister, in discussion with Ian and Greg on Business to Business on 570 News. Greg?
Jim, it's Greg DeRoche from the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Great to have you on. CIBC, I want to change gears just a little bit, but
Sure.
The CIBC released a report, I believe it was last week, on youth unemployment or youth employment, and talked about, I think it was 400,000 youth in Canada that are either unemployed or underemployed. Do you want to maybe make some comments a little bit about that?
Well, this is, of course, a real issue in our country. I mean, it's a real issue in all democratic Western countries, in particular in Europe, but even so here in Canada. I mean, we have a skills deficit in Canada. The challenge is that we don't necessarily always have the young people with the right skill set for the jobs that are available. And so, as we've stated, the need continues to be on to focus on training and making sure that we have the skills in place that can take advantage of the opportunity. We're really the envy of the world in terms of the strength of our economy going forward. But there are lots of young people that are excluded from that success, and so that needs to be a concern for all of us.
You mentioned Europe and Spain. I think I read recently had 57% of young folks under 30 years old that were unemployed, and how disastrous it is over there in Europe. And of course, the federal government's working on the European Union Free Trade Agreement. How important do you think that is to bridge these gaps and maybe create the opportunity for some of our young people to be employed?
Well, the EU trade negotiation is important. It's extremely important that Canada diversify its trading base. The United States will always be our best friend and our best neighbor and our best market. But we have to diversify, for sure in Europe as well, into Latin America. We essentially are underrepresented in terms of trade agreements with the driving economies of the emerging economies of the Asia Pacific. And so we need to be on our game in terms of trade arrangements, and we need to get these agreements negotiated. I can tell you as a specific illustration, I recall being in Parliament when we hammered through the Canada-Colombia Free Trade Agreement. Mm-hmm. I've been astounded just in a few short years benefits of that.
Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely right. There's no question about that. I actually was in a meeting this past week with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce president and CEO, and we talked a little bit about foreign trade and the importance of trade agreements. And actually, he came out with a really interesting statistic that actually only 7% of SMEs in Canada export. And I think, along with these free trade agreements, I think the local chambers of commerce, and Ian and I are big proponents of this, of trying to get our small and medium-sized enterprises looking at export opportunities and dealing in foreign jurisdictions. And I think that kind of parlays with these free trade talks as well.
Well, and I've just come back from a trip across the Asia Pacific to Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur and Beijing, and I mean, these are the emerging markets. We have to be there as Canadians if we're going to take part in terms of exporting technology. Like, we've got to be central in these markets.
Well, Jim, just before we wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, as a former member of Parliament, I know you're still an interested observer of what happens in Ottawa. Is there anything you actually miss about Ottawa after seeing the last week of the theater of question period in Ottawa? Is there anything you miss about that?
Well, I don't miss there aren't many days I wake up wishing I had questions. But listen, there are wonderful people that we have elected in this country, trying to do the best they can for Canada. I think it's unfortunate with what we've been through in terms of the Senate. I think it's been a disappointment to everybody in the country. But probably the most destructive part of that is the sort of loss of confidence by Canadians in their democratic institutions. And so I hope that we rebuild that, because there are lots of really, really fine people in government and in Parliament who, are transparent about their expenses and are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Now, you just as we wrap up, you've had a distinguished career as a lawyer in Calgary and as a cabinet minister. But what's the best part of your new role as vice chair of CIBC? What do you like best about that job?
Well, the banks, we're pretty privileged in this country. We have very strong banks, and they're old, historic institutions. They're pretty grounded in the country. They're grounded in the business community. And so what I really enjoy is the opportunity to work right across Canada and actually internationally with the business community in terms of creating investment, creating jobs, and fulfilling our potential, because we're all worried about our kids and, at this point in my life, our grandchildren, and we want to just make sure that this country continues to flourish. So I like that.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Jim. We appreciate you taking the time on a tough day in Calgary. Safe travels, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right, our guest was Jim Prentice, former Tory cabinet minister, now vice chair of CIBC. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Manulife LPGA Financial with our guest Mike Garside. He is the COO of Gulf North, and he'll be joined in conversation with tournament director for the tournament, Richard Kuipers. That and more as Business to Business continues, powered by Allstream on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Allstream. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715.
This is Eric.
What you know. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News. Powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant. Allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. And segment number 2, we're very, very excited about this. The Manulife Financial LPGA Classic coming to Grey Silo in Waterloo, July 10th. Through 14th, so let's get right to it. We have in studio with us Mike Garside. He is the Vice President and COO of Gulf North. And on the phone, Tournament Chair for the Manulife Financial LPGA Classic, Jim Kuipers. Mike, welcome. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Actually, it's Richard, but that's okay. He responds to anything, because right now he's so busy that he probably doesn't respond to or responds to any name. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm doing very good. Glenn, I'll just call you Gary.
Oh, thank you very much. All right.
Anyways, thanks for joining us, Richard. We're excited. I know we're excited at the Chamber. We've got lots of folks that are part of your volunteers from across the region that are looking forward to the event. But last year's inaugural event was a tremendous success. I was there a couple of days, and I mean, I don't know what the number was. You can fill us in, but like 60,000 spectators. That we had thousands or hundreds and hundreds of volunteers make great charity contributions to the community, and a playoff finish to boot. So. You had a great year last year. What do you expect for this year?
Well, thank you very much. 66,000 people were announced as spectators. 1,300 volunteers last year, and $250,000 to the St. Mary's Hospital Foundation. So all good numbers coming out of last year. How do we top that? Well, we grow. We get bigger, and we get better. So last year we had a tight time frame to put the tournament on. So. The goal was just to get the tournament off the ground and put on a good show for everyone, and make a good experience for our stakeholders. And with obviously the general spectator is a big part of our general stakeholders. So how do we top that? We just make it better. We're adding a whole bunch of events to make the experience, wherever you are coming from or whatever you're doing on site, to make that experience better.
It's Greg DeRocher from the Cambridge Chamber. We have Mike here in the studio as well, Richard, and we're going to probably talk about Gulf North's impact going forward from an economic perspective. But what do you see from an economic impact as far as the event itself? And maybe you can give us, I don't know whether you've got any hard numbers or even estimated numbers of what the value of this tournament is to the region of Waterloo.
Yeah, we do several studies. We didn't do a concrete study on just last year, but these golf tournaments will do anywhere from 15 to 22 million per year.
Wow, that's like huge.
The local economy. Yeah, I mean, if you think about the scope of it, we're bringing in obviously thousands and thousands of just general spectators, but we also have 85 to 100 separate vendor groups that we bring out for the tournament in addition to just running the tournament. So a lot of people congregate here in Waterloo for the tournament, and a lot of them are actually working. So they gotta sleep and eat and play just like everyone else does.
Now, the LPGA is a world tour, and that's I think maybe we chop this up in a little bit. Craig Cann, who now works for the LPGA Tour, but is former media personality from the Golf Channel, was on for your media day a week or two. It must have been 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about this being a real world tour and the number of players that come from different countries. Maybe you can talk about that, and then Mike can kind of chime in about what it means to Golf North to have a world golf tour event here, and the exposure it gives to Golf North and to Gray Silo, which I think the girls really loved. So, but talk about the players that are coming, Richard, and how it is a real international tour.
Yeah, there's I don't know the number, but it's an amazing, staggering amount of countries that are represented by players on tour.
Isn't it something like 60? It was a big number of.
It is, yeah, it is. It's 60 something, and so when we think about shining a global spotlight is the term that I use. Shining a global spotlight on Waterloo region. The reason that we can say that is obviously the countries that are represented, but also the broadcast of the tournament on Golf Channel reaches over 160 countries and over 250 million homes throughout the world. So every time we take it for granted, but every time they flip back from a commercial and they fade into the golf course, that's being seen around the world, and like I said, 160 plus countries and 250 plus million homes.
Yeah, just adding into that, obviously puts the region, not only the region but City of Waterloo and Gray Silo on the world stage.
Yeah,
and it's very important to everybody involved. Right from the volunteers that are there, right to our staff at the golf course itself. They take great pride in everything that they do to. Because it is on the world stage, and it's a lot of pride at the end of the week.
Now, Mike, from Golf North perspective, though, and I think maybe what a lot of people don't understand, it's a significant investment as well.
Absolutely, it is.
You're giving up the golf course for what, week and a half?
We give up the golf course for 8 days.
8 days,
yeah.
And of course it's got to be in a certain condition because
right.
The PGA Tour officials come in and say. Fairway's got to be so wide. The rough's got to be so long. The green's got to run at a certain pace.
Yeah, there's guidelines and there's stipulations. LPGA officials come up and look at the golf course prior to keep our superintendent on the straight and narrow in terms of programs that he's putting in place to have the golf course in the best shape it possibly can be. I think last year that was the best shape I think Gray Silo's ever been in during that week.
Yeah.
And if you can remember, that week was very hot and humid, and it was.
I was the only guy that did an interview with 570 News in a suit and tie when it was 34 degrees. So I can test it was very, very hot.
Why were you wearing a suit and tie? But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But also, Mike, Golf North, yes, are a large contributor to the economic base in the region. Waterloo, you've got a number of golf courses in the area. But you are a business, and so
yes.
You have to rationalize the investment into things like this, and the ongoing, the pre and post event. You before we went on the air, you talked a little bit about what happens to especially Gray Silo before and after the event, and that's just going to grow because you got international viewers watching it, and people always sit out there, and especially golf fanatics, and say, I want to play that course. I think I can birdie that hole that Michelle Wee did or whatever. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that too.
Obviously, Golf North's investment into this is twofold. We do give the golf course up for the week, for like I say, for 8 days. So we're giving up the revenue that we would normally bring in during that week. But on the flip side, there are a lot of intangibles. Obviously, again, with it being on the world stage, our hope is that we will, obviously increase, some play
will increase some awareness of the golf course.
So people will travel from all over to come and play the course.
Absolutely, we're seeing a lot more people from the Toronto area, in the Greater Ontario area now, where we really didn't necessarily see a whole lot of that before.
Mike, for the uninitiated, we hear the term Golf North all the time. You guys are everywhere. You do a very effective marketing job. For the non-golfer, for the business listener who might not be familiar with what exactly Golf North does, could you just explain what it?
How many courses do you have?
What is your what do you do?
We operate 22 golf courses in Ontario, mainly in the southwestern region. We lease 3 of them. We currently own 19. So we've grown by 4 this year. We had 18 at the end of last year. So we're in the growth mode again. Which
River
is
Edge is one of them.
River Edge is one of them. Yes.
This year.
Now, Richard's role. I mean, I'm interested in the connection between Sports Properties International and the LPGA tournament and Golf North and how you work together. So, Richard, your role, and you do everything. You're responsible for concessions to the course condition, along with Golf North, the players, the media, the relationship to Golf North. Richard, just talk about how you guys connect and make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed to get ready for all these international players.
Well, sure. And I come on the radio and I got to talk with Mike again.
Like you don't do that enough.
Could be worse.
So that's sort of the lead-in. We obviously work very closely with the golf course. The golf course is the most important piece for the tournament. There's lots that we do. The tour obviously has a little bit of a stake in everything, and the ownership group and operating company that I run, and then the golf course. And so we work pretty well together. There's daily communication, and it's necessary. There's lots of little things that happen that no one sees, thankfully, because they'd pull their hair out if they knew what actually happened behind the scenes. But Mike and I have a good relationship, and making sure that they're taken care of, and the golf course looks the way that we need it to look, and that unfortunately for me means I've talked to Mike a lot.
All right, we're going to come back with more with Mike Garside, Golf North VP and COO, and Richard Kuipers, Tournament Chair for the Manulife Financial LPGA Classic, July 10th through 14th at Grey Silo. Coming back with more as Business to Business continues on 570 News, powered by Allstream.
Business. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News. Powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant. Allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
And this segment of Business to Business is brought to you by Save On Energy, sponsored by your local utilities. And we're talking Manulife Financial LPGA Classic, July 10th through 14th at Grey Silo. In discussion with Mike Garside, he is the VP and COO of Golf North, and Richard Kuipers, Tournament Chair for the tournament, the Manulife Financial LPGA Classic. Gentlemen.
Just coming from before the break, we were talking about really what effectively is partnerships. So you've got the sponsors like Manulife and BlackBerry and your other corporate sponsors. You got Sports Property International and Richard as tournament director, Golf North, the City of Waterloo. You've got all kinds of partners that have to work together to make this thing come off the page. So maybe Mike, talk a little bit about that, and Richard, how you all work together. You guys are working day to day, but there's those other partners that need to be included as well.
Yeah, I think just like any other business, whether it's supplier client, anything like that, everything turns into a partnership at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this year's a little bit easier than it was last year. I don't know if Rich will attest to that or not, but a lot of partnerships have developed even over the off season, and things have been put in place to make this a little bit better event than it was last year even. So, I know there's a lot of skeptics out there saying that we can't do a better job than what we did last year, but Rich and his team are very professional. We have a lot of faith in them to do what they do, and hopefully they have a lot of faith in us to put a good golf course together and staff it properly. So, Richard, we have some new things happening this year because, of course, the tournament is a different time of year. The kids are out of school. It's in July now, and that's going to open up the door of opportunity for more family type of attraction. Richard here?
Nope.
Did we lose Richard? We must have lost Richard.
I'm still here.
Oh, there you go.
Did you get my question?
I heard your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then we didn't hear you. So
No problem. So together with those partners, we put together a pretty good program this year. And as I mentioned earlier, how you improve from last year, which was a success, is just to make it bigger and better. So we've added a few things this year, and obviously with the July time frame in the schedule, we were able to create something we didn't have last year, which was a spectator engagement area, which with our friends from Blackberry, we're calling the Blackberry Family Zone, and lots of activities for kids. And really, what the goal of that is to bring this event from being a golf tournament to a sporting event, and all the way just to an event where we can get non-golf fans and everyone just to come out to the event because it's a festival celebrating the community.
it is a great experience to take your kids. Golf is a great sport for kids to get involved with because just the etiquette values that's taught and the politeness of a golfer and I think it's a great sport to teach those kinds of things as well. But I think blending it into having a professional event that surrounds itself around and really talks to families and tells parents, bring your kids out and we've got something for you, I think is really going to change the event and maybe make it a more family-friendly type of event, and hopefully people across the region will do that and bring their kids up.
Yeah, that's the idea, and bring someone, bring everyone, come out and have fun. You can get tickets, and really the message is that we had an amazing attendance, and even the players commented to me that they love playing in front of the big crowds.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get that every week, so the message is grab a ticket, come out and support the event, and which supports the community.
Now we talked a bit a higher level about international, the impact of that, but it has this tournament has a real impact on the community too. It's supportive. You mentioned it briefly, but the support for St. Mary's Hospital Foundation. And the support that, or the business that comes to local businesses. You're using a lot of local suppliers as well as having your larger sponsors. So how does this? Who are the folks that you're working with from the small and medium-sized businesses who are members, and talk about the support of local charity.
Yeah, there's two things. There's a lot. I don't know how many there are, Ian, actually, in terms of members, but there's quite a bit. The only vendors that we don't use from the area are a specialized golf, signage, those kinds of things that we have to pull from other places. But we've done a really good job at using, chamber members and local businesses for as many as possible for our operations here. And the partnership with the hospital is we're blessed to have such a great partner, such an active partner on the charitable side. We're putting together a couple good activations this year on site. The biggest being Red Day, which is Friday. The Friday of the tournament, we're asking everyone to wear red in support of St. Mary's and their causes, and specifically women's heart health and keeping an active and healthy lifestyle for your heart. So similar to what the Winnipeg Jets did in when they made the playoffs, we're going to take that white out and make it a red out that day.
So Richard, maybe we better certainly say where people can get tickets.
Absolutely. It's the easiest way, and the best way is to go to our website at manulifeclassic.ca, and there's a few options for everybody.
That's great.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you out on the links with. Well, I guess it's maybe it starts on. Does it actually start? There's a pro-am on the Monday, and then there's the pro-am on the Wednesday, and then the tournament actually starts Thursday. So it's a whole week of events. It's Monday to Sunday. There's something happening right across. Is that right?
Yeah, we've actually added an event in the Waterloo Public Square on July 7th with Blackberry.
Oh wow!
Oh,
yeah.
Very good.
So family-friendly activities there for most of the day for all families to come out, and it's a nice kickoff to the week.
And hopefully it won't be 34 degrees and humid during that.
And I'm going to bring a golf shirt for Ian this year.
Attaboy. Well, thanks, Mike, and
Double
thanks, Richard.
XL for him, man.
That's great. We're looking forward to it.
We should let the people know some of the big names that are going.
Oh yeah. The world number one's coming.
You got a hold of.
I wanted to ask.
Yeah. Let's. Why don't we highlight just some of the names?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Richard, give us some of the names. I heard the world number one last week has re-signed and agreed to come back.
Absolutely. So Indy Park was in our playoff last year.
Our
impressive playoff that Ian was sweating through.
Mm-hmm.
And she's coming back. She's now number one in the world. She actually used her success here, and from here she just had an unbelievable calendar year. Michelle Wee's coming back, Paula Creamer, Stacey Lewis, who's formerly number one in the world, and could get it back, and our defending champion, of course, Brittany Lang, are just some of the names. But we expect We expect to have the majority of the top 25 players in the world here in Waterloo in a couple weeks.
And what Canadians are coming? I think Laurie Kane's coming, but there's some impressive young Canadians going to be here as well.
There's a couple. Rebecca Lee Bentham is from Toronto. Modami LeBlanc is from Sherbrooke. And there are a couple of young ones that just got their cards this year that are very impressive. And I think Stephanie Sherlock's coming, Elena Sharp from Hamilton,
right.
And Laurie Kane obviously is Canada's probably biggest and most celebrated golfer.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Richard.
It'll be a great event.
Richard Kuipers, Manulife Financial LPGA Classic. He is the tournament director. We're coming back with more as Business to Business continues. This segment of Business to Business brought to you by Save on Energy, offered by your local electric utilities. This is 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Allstream. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545, or 1-800-570-5715. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News. Powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant. Allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream, and we are delighted to have with us once again. He was on the program earlier and was quite informative from Allstream, where he is the Director of Unified Communications. We welcome back Dax Nair. Dax, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks for having me back. I'm glad to be here.
Listen, Dax, the last time you were on the show, you gave us an overview of what Unified Communications was. Today you're here to discuss a new evolution of Unified Communications, something you call a hosted collaboration solution, also known as HCS. What is HCS, and can tell us more about it?
Yes, so HCS, as you mentioned, Ian, stands for Hosted Communication Solution. It really is exactly what it states. It is a communication solution hosted in the cloud, meaning that unified communications traditionally delivered or deployed in customers' premises is now delivered from a virtualized location, whether it is in the customer's own data center or a service provider's data center. Clearly, since the call control is delivered from the cloud, it would require a network in between the customer's location and the provider that is capable of carrying the voice collaboration traffic, meaning it's got to have quality enabled on it, make sure that there's no jitter, delays, etc. If you look back, you sort of realize that we have come full circle. I mean, again, we moved away from the days of mainframes and dumb terminals to a client-server model some time back, and now we are moving back to a cloud or virtualized solution, except that the endpoints are a lot more smarter than they used to be. I mean, think about your smartphones, your tablets, your PCs are a whole lot smarter, and they are the endpoints now. We're also now able to procure everything from the cloud. You can buy pretty much everything. You can buy computing, you can buy network infrastructure, you can buy storage, and all kinds of applications from the cloud in terms of Allstream HCS.
Certainly the ability to sort of pick and choose is a benefit to business, but what are some of the other benefits to business of adopting Allstream's HCS solution?
Yeah, I can talk a lot about it, but let me focus on three or four that, keeping in mind the timelines that we have here. So, financial consideration definitely would be one big one for all businesses. Who doesn't want to save money, right? So really, CapEx versus OpEx consideration. I mean, some companies are, if you are like us, we are always balancing between how much capital do we spend this year versus how much OpEx do we spend. So if you have CapEx constraints, this is a great model for you because you are now buying the service as a utility model where you only have to, your outlay is primarily OpEx. You're actually paying on a monthly rate for the services that you subscribe. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the technology refresh requirements are already baked into it, and you get one number to deal with, and you can pre-plan what your future, next 2-3 years cost outlay is going to be from a financial perspective. So that is really a big advantage. Now, technologically speaking, this allows customers to really leverage everything that is available on a high-end platform like Cisco HCS, and also leverage all the network components that are brought into it by Allstream to really drive the productivity gains, the virtualization, that they may not have presence in a city where now they're able to have the presence. That really drives productivity. You can always reach the person who knows what the answer is without really leaving that person a voicemail or hoping that they'll call back. The flexibility you just mentioned, Ian, is another big one, right? I mean, you can adopt and use what you want, and also you have the ability to shrink or grow according to your business's needs. I mean, you don't really have to buy $1 million worth of system because that is what you need to support a much lower base of users. But in this case, if you have 500 users, you buy for 500, and if that becomes 480, then you buy for 480. And that's the kind of model that you have. And clearly, business continuity these days with snowstorms and SARS, and it's a little dated SARS conversation, but it really, you don't know what can happen. So in a cloud-based environment, you can easily move your folks around in a virtualized manner to support that requirement as well.
All right, Dax, thanks very much for your time today. Dax Nair, Director of Unified Communications with Allstream. They're our main sponsor. We're delighted to have them with us, and you can check them out at allstream.ca. And by the way, now that I have you on the line, could you please thank Stephanie Wallace as well for all her great work that she does in lining not only you up, but all the various guests at Allstream. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, thanks very much. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye-bye. That was Dax Nair from Allstream. Great to have him along with us. Okay, we've got a few minutes to go. Mike's still with us. Mike Garside, Gulf North VP and COO. And again, we want to get the word out. I mean, we don't really have to get the word out. Everybody knows about this tournament. But if you want to see great golf, if you want to see the best women golfers in the world right here in Waterloo region, get yourself to the Manulife Financial LPGA Classic, July 10th through 14th at Great Silo. Yeah. Tickets at manulifeclassic.ca.
And if you want to play the course,
yeah,
like Ian really does want to play the course in
pro conditions,
tournament ready. Mike, can he play right up to the tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. The golf course itself will be open for play up until noon on the Sunday prior to the event.
So you're starting to let the rough grow now at this point?
Yeah, it's been growing pretty good, obviously, with all the rain that we've had.
Great. There's got to be thousands of balls in there already.
I'm sure there's probably lots of Ians.
Yeah, well, I only lost 5 or 6 last year. I did play the Pro-Am, which must have been the Wednesday. No, it was the Monday before. And it was I was on city council when we owned Grace Island and did the partnership with Gulf North, and the course never looked any better, played any better. I played it quite often, so it got the better of me, and I'm sure it'll take even more this year. But they can play right up till Sunday before the tournament starts on Monday.
Till Sunday at noon. We close the first tee at Sunday at noon.
Maybe you want to mention a little bit about logistics too, of getting in there especially when the tournament's on,
and with parking and how because people will be confused by that.
There's lots of signage obviously coming up University if you're coming in that way, which most people do, either from Northfield or from the Expressway. There's lots of signage there, and it's very easy to get in and out. There's a large field that we park cars in,
and then there's shuttles to get you
less than a 7-minute shuttle from there to the entrance. And actually last year that was flawless. We had a lot of people comment on Rich and his crew on how well they transported people and got people around the golf course and in and out. We even had a actual thunderstorm on the Thursday. So we had to evacuate the golf course. And they did it again flawlessly. They're nothing but professionals.
It's if you haven't had that experience, and obviously probably the three of us have, but if you haven't had the experience at a professional golf tournament, it's really a great experience. Bring your if you have kids, bring your kids out who are interested in golf, or not. And it's just a great day to walk in the park and have a look at some great players and great people, actually.
Mike, thank you so much for your time. We do have to go. We look forward to seeing you and the gang out at Manulife Financial LPGA Classic at Grey Silo, July 10th through 14th. Thank you so much for being here, Mike Garside, VP and COO of Gulf North. Thanks to our guests, Richard Kuipers, Tournament Chair for the Manulife Financial LPGA Classic, and to Jim Prentice, Vice Chair of CIBC. Our producers, Candace Cobbing and Liz Russell, thanks for doing all that you do. Liz producing the web stream of the show at 570news.com. We've got Blue Jays baseball coming up as they look to tie a franchise record for consecutive wins. You've been listening to Business, powered by Allstream on 570 News.
Hi, it's Pat Finelli offering you hot